Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. I'm Drew Dinkmeyer here with Mike Gallagher to walk you through a massive, it's not really an 11-game slate. There's 11 games today. There is one early game on the docket that we will be trying to get out of here in advance of this 3 o'clock Eastern game with Phoenix and the Knicks. Mike, it is your birthday. You've got the happy birthday background. Happy New Year to everyone listening. Happy birthday to the one and only Mike Gallagher. How are you on your birthday?
Doing good, yeah. Basketball, early basketball too. A little birthday gift from the NBA. Love to see a little island game. Could really watch the Suns and their crappy defense. But yeah, feeling pretty good. It was Brody's birthday yesterday as well. Happy sixth Brody birthday to the Broad man. But yeah, NBA, a lot of NBA today. Wouldn't have it any other way.
Wonderful. The chat is celebrating with you. 11 games, lots of stuff to tackle. So let's get right into it. Let's start with the big questionable tags on the slate, and really not on the slate, but in this first game, Jalen Brunson, that we're waiting on. Any read on Jalen Brunson's availability in the game that tips in an hour that we still don't have information on beyond the Q tag?
He's game time. He's going through his workout right now with the training staff. So sounds like they're trying to prep him to play. This injury wasn't too serious. So I think he's got a pretty good chance to suit up. Obviously, if he doesn't play, it's Emmanuel Quickly season in a significant way. And if he is playing, it's still kind of Emmanuel Quickly season. He should see pretty good minutes. We talk about the matchup on the other end. But if it would be Mikal picking up the Brunson matchup, I would think. So Quickly could kind of benefit in a sneakier way. Probably seeing a little bit of Chris Paul. So I think either way, Quickly's in a really good spot here.
And if Brunson were to play, whose minutes would be most at risk that we've seen benefiting these last few games?
I mean, they would probably cut McBride in a significant way if he's out there. Maybe they would, cut Rose out entirely because I think McBride's played pretty well, and then Fournier would go bye. We saw him kind of pop in the rotation to fill some minutes over Cam Reddish, who apparently is not playing for the Knicks anymore.
On the other side of that game, the probables, Landry Shamet and Cam Payne, both listed probable, expected to return today. How does that impact the Phoenix rotation in this early game?
It impacts it kind of a lot. So we saw Shamet kind of fill in as like the backup guard because Monty Williams said that he wanted to use him as like his point guard too in the rotation. Now that they got Cam Payne back, I think it makes a ton of sense to start Shamet. Which I kind of didn't think through all the way when I did matchups. But yeah, I think Shamet probably starts. This injury wasn't very concerning. He could play a lot. He's coming off that outstanding game last time we saw him before getting posterized. But I think Shamet's in a pretty decent spot. He's in a good matchup. Knicks allow a lot of 3-pointers. So if he starts, we'll see what kind of if there's a minutes limit. But he could be playing quite a bit. No, Derrick Rose just got ruled out.
Okay, well, that might be a good sign on Brunson. We'll see. All right, let's move to the games that are tonight. Embiid draws a questionable tag tonight against the Pelicans. Tyrese Maxey was on a limit in his return in that first game back. What are your thoughts on Philadelphia tonight?
Yeah, late addition. You hate to see that. So we'll see if Embiid's out. Not a back-to-back. So I think he's got an okay chance to play, but you never know. This Embiid stuff's been pretty tricky to track. We know the Sixers are not going to give us anything. Doc doesn't even know probably if he's playing. But yeah, Maxey, we saw him sit in the back-to-back, guts out there, plays 19 minutes off the bench. Same matchup. They just played this Pelicans team on Friday. So I expect him to start the same, assuming Embiid can go. If Embiid can't go, I think you can make a maybe bigger case for Maxey to start just because you need a little bit more offense there. But against Valanciunas and Zion, I think that they would, if they haven't beat, I'd expect them to start with Tucker at the 4. Melton again, getting the CJ McCollum matchup after he got completely wrecked. CJ franchise record 11 3-pointers, scored 42, and a big win for the Pels on Friday.
It sounds like Harrell would be the one to draw the start, you think, given he was the one playing backup in the same matchup?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I
wouldn't be surprised to go Paul Reed, but just with the rim pressure, we know that they like Paul Reed for defense a little bit more. So yeah. I wouldn't be shocked if it's Paul Reed.
Yeah, it's just the reason I would be a little bit surprised is just because they didn't choose to use him in the same matchup as the backup center, and obviously it's a little bit different. But if you really want him for the matchup, why not play him last time? But okay, let's move on to Chicago, where Javonte Green is questionable, Alex Caruso and Derrick Jones Jr. probable. We've seen the Bulls play with and without some of these back end rotation pieces for the last week or so. What's your read on Javonte Green tonight?
Not much. Sounds like he was, it's probably just one of those fake Q tags to make sure he's okay because we saw him return. Should be out there. Looking at a pretty similar rotation here and a pretty tough matchup. The Cavs have been defending pretty well overall, but not too big of an impact there. And curious to see if Caruso gets the start. We saw him. I think that not having Derek Jones could have pushed them that way. You don't have your front court depth. They sub in Caruso is kind of a 1 and a 4 sometimes. We see him guard like Julius Randle and stuff. So I think that kind of low key, the Derek Jones Jr. coming back could elevate Caruso, and then they also didn't have Dragic as well. So there's kind of a lot of moving parts. I think that could worked in favor of Caruso coming off the bench. I think he can kind of start today.
Yeah, Dosunmu's playing pretty well though. I think they might just want him to kind of run with it, and I think they might know that Caruso, they can't keep playing him like 30 plus minutes. He just wears down body wise. So the big thing that I'd note here is obviously when they got Javonte Green back and they started to get some of this depth back, you can see the Patrick Williams minutes there, 21 minutes. So the upside on him gets really, really cut thin when they're fully healthy with these backcourt options, because they, as you alluded to, when they have all the backcourt options, they're happy to play Caruso at the 4 some. Okay. Let's move on to the other side of this. Cleveland, who they played last time. Evan Mobley, questionable. Darius Garland, doubtful. Do you have starters jerseys, pictures ready for us?
No pictures, but we do have reports from multiple beats saying that Mobley had a starter's jersey, or he was at a shoot around, which is usually an indication that he's starting. So no pictures, sadly. But it sounds like he's going to be back, so that would move Kevin Love back to the bench after kind of popping off over the weekend in the same matchup.
And Garland, if doubtful, which is what he is listed as, we saw Karis LeVert slide in that starting lineup and play quite a bit. Do you think that's the same approach that they take in the absence of Garland tonight?
Yeah, I think so. We'll be on. Hopefully, we have some pictures for the DFS show later today. But I think so. He played pretty well. He basically just slotted into Donovan Mitchell's role, and then Mitchell slotted into the Garland role. A lot of ball handling, 15 potential assists. Actually, ran really bad. Only had 6 assists. So I think Mitchell's in a pretty good spot here, and LeVert also I think could really benefit. He'll get a much weaker matchup. Probably see a little bit of Levine on the other side.
All right. On to the Hornets. No Kelly Oubre. Dennis Smith Jr. is questionable there. I say no Kelly Oubre as if it's a sure thing, but as we've seen with Charlotte in their injury report a little bit late, there's been a little bit of hokey pokey with Kelly Oubre. What are your thoughts on their rotation and how it's impacted tonight if Dennis Smith Jr. returns?
Yeah, it should be a pretty good amount of Jalen McDaniels. I believe he was the first sub, and we saw him run, up pretty high, actually kind of cutting into Hayward a little bit as he picked up some Kevin Durant matchup minutes there. But yeah, I would expect him to play quite a bit. And then also we're seeing Mark Williams. He's going to play a few games as the backup center. So this, I think, would be the third one for him. So I feel pretty good about him being the backup to Plumlee. And he's been just crushing per minute in a matchup that's pretty good against a Lakers unit that'll be pretty small.
Yeah, the other thing that I note here is, I mean, you're seeing the heavy minutes from the starters. This was a blowout game. I mean, the last 3 minutes, you see Kai Jones, Nick Richards, and James Bouknight all got action there. And LaMelo still got up to 36, PJ Washington 33. So, the ceiling on these Hornets minutes, while they're really shorthanded, is really, really elevated. Okay, Lonnie Walker, questionable for the Lakers. On the other side of things, we saw Austin Reeves slide in that starting lineup without Walker. Any read on Walker's availability tonight?
No, not much, but yeah, he would probably get the start again. Pretty good matchup here. 2 really, really bad defense. This is a game you really want to attack. LeBron could just totally crush here. We've seen just big minutes, man. Age is just a number. It's something that reminds me of, it's my birthday and I'm getting older. But if LeBron could go out there and
time to approach a 50-point triple double on your birthday, Mike.
Let's do it. Yep. So LeBron's in a huge spot here, man. Just with the small ball lineup and the minutes are just so elevated. Not a back-to-back as well. I'd love to see it.
Yeah, a couple things that I just want to note there with the Lakers. Just generally, since AD's gone down, they've still played pretty good basketball. Their rebound percentage as a team has actually been up in the last 8 games or so, up over 50%. So they're still covering the glass well, even without Anthony Davis. And it's a testament to LeBron. I mean, he's really been carrying things here, but Thomas Bryant's been really good as well. You can see the 19 and 17 performance there against the Hawks. Okay, Precious and Fred VanVleet. Precious Ochoa, Fred VanVleet for Toronto, both questionable today. We've seen a lot of questionable tags for Fred VanVleet. We haven't seen him play through a lot of questionable tags of late. Any reason to think today is different?
Had a few days here. We've seen him. We basically called he had no shot of playing through those Q tags the last 2 games, but that was a couple games ago. I think he's got a chance to heal up and be out there. Gary Trent's been playing really well. Just kind of flamethrowing the last couple games, so I'd expect him to play kind of a lot regardless. So I think they would probably kick Koloko out. Koloko actually played pretty well, had a huge shot last week in the corner 3. So yeah, I think I don't have a great read though. We haven't heard anything from Nurse on Van Vliet's status over the weekend.
We saw Gary Trent Jr. Really erupt the last few games without Fred VanVleet. Do you expect he would be the primary beneficiary if VanVleet's unable to go?
Yeah, I think so. Not the best matchup for him, but I think he could definitely kind of get going. I don't think he would draw the Nemhart matchup. They put Nemhart on Kawhi last week. That was kind of interesting. I don't think they would put him on Siakam. That would be Aaron Nesmith. So, and yeah, I think Trent's kind of locked in. I think he starts regardless.
All right, let's move on to Alperen Şengün, who's questionable for Houston tonight. We saw him miss the game against the Knicks. They started Bruno Fernando in that spot. It wasn't a great result for them. Fernando really struggled. What are your thoughts on availability for Şengün tonight, and if they'd go back to Fernando in the starting lineup?
Yeah, he's going to be a game time call, and yeah, late scratch. We didn't have this information at all. It kind of, I think, stylish used the term popped up late that he got scratched out of there. So not a great read on the situation. Back injuries are tricky, but I think he's got an okay shot to play. It didn't even list them, so I think that they were just okay. No, he's sorted. They listed him out, so I think he's got a pretty good chance to return to the starting lineup. If not, yeah, I mean, just a lot of usage to go around. Kevin Porter Jr. has been putting up stat lines kind of consistently, really high minutes from him. So a matchup that I think he could take advantage of as well.
Yeah, my guy Tari Eason benefited last game from not only Şengün's absence, but Jabari Smith early foul trouble trying to guard Julius Randle did not go well. Okay, let's move on to Atlanta. DeAndre Hunter is questionable. Again, we've seen Hunter miss a lot of these games of late. Any hope on his return tonight?
Yeah, it sounded like he was getting kind of close in the Lakers game. Got ruled out pretty late, so I think he's got a chance to return. Probably have an okay minutes limit, but I think he's got a. And we saw AJ Griffin get the start for him, but it sounded like he was almost ready to go. That was a couple days ago, so I think he has a pretty good chance to play. What was, a minor ankle injury from what it looked like, but he's a really slow healer. So I talked about this before. The signs were kind of there. He was going to play Friday, so it should be a much better chance today.
Still no Clint Capella there, so expect a Kongwu to once again draw the start. Starting to settle in a little bit more consistency in the center spot. The matchup with Golden State tonight is one to potentially take advantage of, as they've struggled against centers this year, but they've been very good at home. So a little bit of a yin and yang push and pull with a Kongwu's matchup tonight. Okay, Portland. They're getting Gary Payton back finally. No more return to competition reconditioning stuff. Nurk, Yusuf Nurkic, Keon Johnson, and Greg Brown all listed on the injury report. Matchup against Detroit at home, so kind of a little bit of a soft spot here to bring Gary Payton back. How do you think his return impacts things, and what do you think on the statuses of some of these secondary options?
Yeah, so illness, we saw Nurk get the mid-day Q tag on Friday, so that was when he was on the front end of this illness. Had a couple days to get over that, so should be okay. And yeah, we talked about this a lot, and you and Gary just summed it up. I mean, the minutes are going to be so high for these guys, and that'll take getting Gary Payton back will be kind of big, and it's going to probably really cut out Shane Sharp like significantly. For Shane Sharp to only get 19 minutes when they had like literally only 2 guards to compete with. He might go away entirely. There was some comments from Chauncey Billups, which is what kind of got us on this, play Blazers thing, that he didn't want to play Sharp at all. He just had to. So I wouldn't be surprised if Sharp just goes away in this rotation. I still think that Dame could play quite a bit. He's been matchups covered boy today. We just love to play ball handlers against the Pistons. So really high upside coming off a loss that they blew late. I think Dame could just totally take over. This team has nobody to guard him. So I think Dame could really pop off here. If Nurk's out again, Eubanks would get the start. Probably have a pretty good leash on the minutes. And also worth noting too, Billups said whenever there's a rookie guarding Nurk, they want to go to him. So you get Duran on the other side. So there's a little bit of a coach speak points funnel, but Dame's going to pop off regardless.
So your lean, I think this is pretty important. Your lean is that Gary Payton's return is more likely to cut into Shaden Sharp than expand the rotation.
Yes, I think they'll probably run them both, but I mean they might just take him out, man. Sharp got really poo-pooed by Billups 2 games ago, so I think there's definitely a legit chance they're probably going to want to run 9, but because they just didn't have the bodies. But
Yeah.
I would expect minutes to get cut down pretty hard.
Well, the big thing for me is just trying to understand from a Portland perspective if we're still going to see Dame and Simons and Grant and Hart and these guys still continue to touch 36, 37 in these competitive games, or if the rotation lengthens and they're allowed to get to, I think Dame's are always going to be around 36. But if they're then allowed to, get these guys more like 34 or 35 in closer games, because I think these guys being able to touch 40 is just such a huge differentiator among many other players in the league who get capped around 33, 34. So wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, Billups said that he kind of knew he was wearing his guys down, and I mean, you saw the fourth quarter, complete meltdown, 30 to 16 fourth quarter, as Poole put him away, and Dame got, I bet the over on him at 30.5. It got there in the third, and he only finished it with 34. So he really struggled. Kuminga was very impactful. DiVincenzo was really good on that, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I still think that if you're willing to run them out so when they were so tired, I think that they could run them up there quite a bit. Again, they definitely want to win here.
And Payton, you're expecting. What do you think Payton's role is immediately, and then long term, what do you think they'd like to get him to? I'm kind of thinking we'll see teens on the minutes to start. And I'm thinking long term, if they had their way, maybe they could get them up to like 22. But I don't think there's much beyond that without injury. Is that your expectation?
Yeah, I think that's about right, and certainly don't need him here. We saw him a lot last year as like a really impactful guy who covers point guards. Obviously, he started the Grizzlies series. You don't worry about guards on the other side, but looking at just kind of look at the schedule. At Minnesota, at Indiana. So a game like Indiana where he's guarding Tyrese Halliburton a lot, I think I could see like a lot of minutes there. But
what would a lot be for Gary Payton? What are you thinking when you think of a lot?
Well, I want to see how he does in these 2 games here, but I could potentially see him like low 20s for that game because he's really important. But
so you think it'll be more of a situational range where like he's in the rotation every game though, right? We would agree with that. And then it's like 16, 17, 18 in most games. And then against really high-end guard options that they need him, maybe he reaches up to 22, 23, 24. Is that kind of the idea you're thinking?
Yeah, I think in those spots he'd get most of the non-Dame, non-Ant minutes to fill in some gaps there.
Okay, cool. Let's keep it moving with the Heat. The Heat's injury report, as always, is one to check and make sure you have time to read through. So we've got questionable tags for Gabe Vincent, Duncan Robinson, Caleb Martin, Udonis Haslem, a probable tag for Jimmy Butler tonight. What's your read on the Heat in LA against the Clippers?
Yeah, most of those look to be fake tags. I think Vincent should be out there. We saw Oladipo back-to-back days last week of not listing Lowry, sitting him, and then first front end back to back, not listing Depot, and then playing him. Gotta love Miami, and by love I mean hate. But should be the only one that's concerning is Duncan Robinson. That's kind of a new tag for him, so I think he's got a shot to miss. Certainly won't be a big deal. He might not even play anyways. He's been playing better. There was some talk up from Spoelstra, but not a really big impactful injury there. And then if Caleb's out again, which it sounds like he was pretty close last game. That would certainly be taking Haywood Highsmith out of the rotation. And then, Duncan and Highsmith would be kind of competing for those minutes.
On the other side of that game, Nicholas Batum is questionable for the Clippers. How do you expect? Do you expect him to miss? And if he did, how would that impact their rotation tonight?
Yeah, tough read on the illness. We saw him not play against the Pacers in an early game. Probably back, right? He was kind of listed on the front of that. So if he's out, we saw Covington sub in early and then lose a lot of rotations in the second half. I think he barely even played in the second half as they went tiny. Terrence Mann center minutes. Luke Kennard was like the 3 Paul George and John Wall, I think was the lineup. Just crazy small lineup for a long stint against Miles Turner. We saw Miles Turner take over.
Yep.
I believe he scored 23 in the fourth. So yeah, if he's out, I think that could be a sneaky spot for Bam on the other side of this game. But a lot of really good defense in that matchup. But yeah, Batum's issue could also bump up Zubats. We've seen some comments that they don't want to up his minutes. Only getting 27 in the last game from Zoo. There's a comment from Lou, I want to say Wednesday, saying, "Oh, we can't play Zubats that much anymore." But yeah, so that would probably not affect Zubats honestly that much.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because they played really tight on the whole, right? It was basically like an 8-man rotation. You could say 9 with Covington and Mann kind of splitting that last bit. But Paul George got up to 40, Kawhi got up to 35, Reggie Jackson played 33. Him and Wall played all 48 point guard minutes. We had seen some overlap, or we'd seen some Norm Powell point guard minutes before from those two. So really interesting to try to figure out the Clippers rotations each and every night. But Batum, late questionable tag, be ready.
Brunson is in, and yeah, just to note, there is no overlap. I think in the last 8 games, there's only been 2 minutes of John Wall and Reggie Jackson overlap.
Yeah, the ceiling's really been impacted. They've got a lot of ball handling on the wings, which was always the plan. That was the plan of how they built this team with Paul George, Kawhi Leonard. They go out and get Norm Powell. They want to have a lot of wings that can ball handle. They want to play a lot of wings all at the same time, be really switchable, and just wreak havoc defensively. That was the idea. Okay. Devin Vassell, probable, expected to return, listed, I believe, available to play. No Keita Bates-Diop tonight. Any other thoughts for the Spurs?
No, pretty straightforward. We've seen Jeremy Sohan get a lot of minutes here against. He's going to be sacrificial lamb against Kevin Durant. So yeah, we just talked about Kevin Durant quite a bit on the pod. That should be out in your feed today. But yeah, Sohan's been great, man. Just consistent minutes, guarding the ball, handling the ball a little bit, scoring a little bit more. He is kind of suddenly bursting the scene as a viable fantasy guy, despite the big spread here. I think the Nets projected team total is like 125. They should score a ton.
Let's move to the Warriors. 6 guys listed out today: Stephen Curry, JaMychal Green, Andre Iguodala, Jonathan Kuminga, Andrew Wiggins, and James Weissman, all listed out. So some serious front court depth issues there. With no Kuminga, no Weissman, no JaMychal Green. That leaves basically Looney and Dre as guys that could play the center spot. Matchup against Atlanta is a team that will play somewhat smaller centers, like Okongwu is a little bit smaller sized, Collins is a little bit smaller sized. So certainly not a matchup that is super impactful there. But do we see heavier minutes from Looney and Dre with all these front court issues, and who else benefits for Golden State tonight?
Yeah, there could be more of a ceiling, and the Hawks have been pretty bad at stopping centers and offensive rebounding stuff. So it's kind of a sneaky Kevon Looney spot here. I wouldn't mind him seeing a big game. They'll play Anthony Lamb as more of a 4, and they'll probably bring in Patrick Baldwin, who's been kind of shooting lights out. They'll probably bring him in for some minutes just to fill out the rotation. They did also call up Ryan Rollins, which obviously doesn't really matter. And then another guy that is impacted without Kuminga is Dante DiVincenzo. He could play a lot. He is really the only guy who's like an on-ball defender for them. So he'll be on trade duty, probably match his minutes as much as he can. So I'd expect, and he'll get trade on the other side. So kind of a low-key great spot for DiVincenzo, just being the lone on-ball defender that Kerr seems to really trust there.
Yeah, and we've seen them willing to play pretty tight with Kuminga being one of those guys. So things could get kind of tight tonight. It's an interesting spot. Golden State has been trying to get as many wins as they can in the absence of Steph Curry. This would look to be another spot against Atlanta at home to potentially do that. I'm kind of interested in Golden State guys tonight. I think this is a good spot for them on the whole.
And Draymond playing through some injuries. Dante DiVincenzo said some blood on that, but minutes have been solid. He's been playing excellent basketball lately.
Detroit side of things, just a note that Killian Hayes is still out with the league suspension. They're without Cade Cunningham forever. Any other notes on how Detroit's handling the absence of Killian Hayes?
Oh, no, pretty straightforward. Expect them to start pretty big again with the Sadiq Bey lineup. We saw Marvin Bagley have kind of a really big game over the weekend, but yeah, pretty straightforward.
Second night of a back-to-back, and they let that second unit really run. And this was the slate that Saturday night where there was just tons of dupes and overlap because of all the players that were ruled out. And the winning lineups ended up having like Hamidou Diallo as the cheap option to separate because everybody was looking for a 3K guy. Bay only 18 minutes in that spot start. Really frustrating because he's had a couple opportunities here and he's not gone away with it. And I'd like to thank Isaiah Stewart for giving us a sweat at the end on our under 7.5 rebounds in a game that Jalen Duren gets 0 rebounds. And we were still in. Isaiah Stewart had 4 rebounds with 55 seconds left. We still found a way to sweat under 7.5. Thank you for stopping and no stat corrections there. All right. Last thing we wanted to note before we get out of here. Still no Larry Nance for the Pelicans. We've highlighted this in the past, but Jonas Valanciunas' ceiling goes up in the games without Larry Nance. Now, Joe Val's been getting kind of owned of late. Steven Adams just completely worked him over the weekend. The matchup with Joel Embiid, if Embiid is healthy, is kind of a big one to be able to stay out of foul trouble. But if Embiid is unavailable to go, it becomes a really good spot for Jonas Valanciunas tonight. Any other thoughts on the absence of Larry Nance?
Yeah, that's it. Just a really, and even 2 games ago, he wasn't very good. So this is definitely a get-right spot for Valanciunas. Mostly sums it up.
All right, and then the Nuggets are on the second night of back-to-back. Big win last night at home against Boston. They have not filed yet.
Could be getting that in 4 minutes.
Anything that we'll be looking forward to there? You think we see Jamal Murray tonight?
Yeah, I think he should be back, right? I think it was just a management thing. So I expect him to come back after Bruce Brown had a pretty solid performance last night.
All right. Well, we will leave it on there to get out in advance of the 2:30 before we have more work for ourselves. Also to make sure that we have projections right for this Knicks Suns game. But as a reminder, support the people who are supporting us. The show is brought to you by our friends at Underdog Fantasy. They have daily NBA snake drafts for money running in addition to many formats of NFL contests, still running for huge cash prizes. If you're playing NBA Pick'em, in-season subscribers of ETR can use our tool to compare ETR projections to their fantasy pick'em games. If you haven't signed up for Underdog yet, use promo code ETR for a matching deposit bonus up to $100. It's promo code ETR at underdogfantasy.com. If you are interested in joining us behind the paywall, it will be myself and birthday boy Mike Gallagher tonight at 5 o'clock Eastern, walking you through this 11-game slate. Our holiday sale is over. Hopefully you were able to take advantage of that and join us. As always, if you're uninterested in giving us your hard-earned dollars, we ask to consider giving us your hard-earned clicks. You can subscribe to get notifications whenever we go live to this YouTube page. You can also smash that like button and help circulate within the algorithm our free content so we can keep providing it for you. As we always say, feed the algorithm, help feed our families, and help feed yourselves with this great injury information to help you play props and betting and DFS. Nom, 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 nom. We'll see you tomorrow.
Love it.